Really?
I really think,
Yeah, it's kind of-
yeah, might have to leave a little early just because, my nephew's game, I'm trying to time it.
There's that reader. It's okay.
Are you going first?
If our government's gonna give us, I might as well grab it.
Oh, wow.
Then just. What time is it?
I need a little, great. Remember to first send me my pajamas on, and then. I think it was.
With the clothes on. That's the.
You see it?
Yeah, that's my son's pose.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, he Robert, I'm Batman.
Activated.
My name, right? And I texted it.
Is some honey up there?
Huh?
Some honey up there?
Oh, brother, man.
That's the process.
I'm not. There's always any.
Thanks.
We know.
Not that we're counting.
You put it on.
Just show us the.
Yeah, I'll love to hear your presentation.
I guess people don't really care about the.
Yeah.
While you're driving.
Heard you were a little sick the other week.
Man, I was gone, boy.
So we're considering, I know it needs to be.
I had to keep moving, medication on the night. Yeah, I couldn't flush it out. Man. Oh,
Well, like, never. Like,
Yeah.
man. So it was good, still down.
It was.
I tested myself to move.
now it's different, now, look, yeah. No longer use that.
Stress. Yeah, I got one of these. It reduces the-
I didn't have, all I did have.
Very much.
My box was short.
No.
Might be wrapping it up.
Yeah, you're right. That wouldn't happen.
They included like.
I should try to say it later.
You ever thought about putting a box?
Actually, I grew up,
Loads.
Actually, you are a scholarship for boxing. Boxing scholarship. He's going to school, right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you go look up to USA boxing, they got scholarship programs in there.
okay.
Oh, wow.
So we were out there.
Boxing club.
Watch the
Like,
plan.
when you get your scholarship,
But I
all you
got
gotta do is doing your school. Yeah, they'll show you, they'll talk to you, talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
Scholarship.
Yeah, that's a good incentive right there. Yeah.
No, I'm straight up nice.
Okay. Okay.
I'm straight up positive.
Okay. Right, wow, that's,
We like the box.
Yeah.
We just want to work out.
work out, get it
So,
straight.
are you from?
I'm from there.
Yeah.
I'll just hit you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Definitely hit you back.
I'll follow up.
Gotta go there. 10:15. So I'll.
Six.
Yeah.
Drink a lot of water.
Said that was old, so.
I was starting to do this.
You got to cry. 26, you started out.
Man, we have time. What I.
I'm sure we had nice.
Public spaces, that's why we actually started to unite. So we see that.
Yeah. Like not too big.
More and more money. We don't trust the. We definitely don't trust the straight. Because we might never just use it. We're not really having a conversation.
That's our conversation. What rooms here? Which rooms there?
I'm from Leavenworth.
There's no.
Like 7 years ago.
I had two, gloves to the
Awesome.
They had like.
They don't have.
12 months, 13 months. Really important. In deer. What our applications.
Yeah.
You need some block. We're gonna make sure that there's working class protection students. If you're not working towards working class protections, you're enslaving us. So you're enslaving us, and you're murdering our children. CJ is your fault just as much as any of the other representatives around. Actually wants to. Well, you don't. That's fine. Not sure that you know. I'll probably be shit.
All right, yeah, I'm sure somewhere down the line, I'm sure it pays you.
So the council. Do you know what council's name?
Oh, no.
Right, you know the council's.
I know.
It's not up there, mine is up there. Okay, I'm
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and ask you breakfast here, we got some other names. But, hey, okay. You know, you're not.
It's not that far.
Yeah, so that's Chicago. Yeah, so Chicago. Yeah, we have to take it out.
Going to Queen, next Saturday. It's a bunch of us and speaking of that issue, we're sponsoring the trip. And the opportunity to grow up in Wichita and was fortunate enough to be able to leave because it was being said that the companies are looking for
He said it was.
black folk.
Testing and all that stuff.
Standing there. Oh, this is a teacher here that I had supervised by design educators, so that not, we're allowed to have. Education said, I got to go to the bathroom, I saw my grade card, you know, since I'm pretty bad, saw my grade card. Gave me an A minus. But didn't recommend it.
Oh, nice.
Now, you just wanna know why?
That's they go to,
And then all of, is it all over to?
Edgemore. Ninth
Ninth is the south.
the Sweet Lake.
The part. Curfew.
Oh,
Housing
yes.
complex, south boundary. 13 There's more to the house.
Yeah, was that, he's, part.
It's kind of like.
I remember when that was built. And it was something different from what it was.
It was. I have the record. It was the lady's house I lived in, her host. But it was originally planned for a row of townhomes.
Cause I
And
moved
then.
to Tennessee, so now.
Right there, a couple of apartment complexes, maybe.
Yeah.
Best they could get. That run down Williamsburg Street.
And I go
And then
crazy
go up
for.
to the property became Parkland Park.
This person ready. They're hard, yeah, to. Oh, that water, that's the starting point.
That's the starting point.
Likely.
Yeah, that's why he said, okay. Let's dig out this.
I remember that now. I mean, that's some of
No.
that discussion.
He's taking notes. When I thought you guys were here, I lived in
Sad and I.
So I'm curious.
Oh, I guess I should.
Makes
do the same thing,
It's a busy day. I don't remember. We have Oktoberfest, parade and all that. Right in the frame. Panels. It's a Saturday. And then the Black Gym Night.
I check it every day.
5:30.
I gotta hit a spin move, so I'm casually
Yeah, yeah.
dressed, so that's okay. I'm forever.
It's a breakfast. Just bringing like kids and stuff. Well,
What are you on in your?
options.
Right.
Breakfast is ready. Everybody wants.
That's what I've seen these.
Yes,
Right there.
Thank you. Like the voting, we're supposed to hear, like, show a little bit of everything. Different.
Yeah.
Thank you for these.
Okay.
Yeah. I got one. He bought it outright. I got it. And I pulled mine out. It can. Yeah.
The modeling thing is really got it right.
See the dude put up the fence. The trees don't look like you slick those times, the trees over on the side of the hill. It's just, it ain't, that man ain't ours.
Look on the guy that's not take care. Yeah, yeah. I know.
That's why.
Oh, it's tough.
Frankie Mason.
Oh, yeah.
This is supposedly October month. I was, and a lot of people are doing lots of. So. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Fairmont Park, they've got trail. It's probably the third Wednesday.
16?
Yes, I'll text you.
Okay. Oh dang, that's the day I go to town, but we can definitely share it and post it and get it within
Oh, okay.
I would love to come to one of them, but yeah.
Well, the 8 o'clock in the morning. Are not doing it very well. So.
Have you done a midday or an evening? You've done the evening that you said, right?
No, not me.
No?
I haven't. I've always been, but I think I'm gonna change. And every one is in a different name. So. But this month. The walks that Sierra used to do.
Right. Look, we're on Saturday morning.
But it'll be at night. It doesn't have to be that mild.
Well, if you do before, then yes, I would love to. You do before, you do, well, that's not very noted, the 9th.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And then the next week, Tuesday, or it's the week after.
Oh, that's,
The one, wait, no, that's one
Yes.
week before, the 4th.
What's going on? Yeah, get a hold of y'all.
It's been pretty good. And it's gonna,
Did you drag him?
I don't wanna get too close,
That's true.
even though that's
I ain't heard from you.
entirely different.
Well, that 16th is the whole week, so you might want to go week after that.
You're alive.
Yes.
Sunday, the 13th, then that Wednesday, the 16th is the walk. That'd be only 3 days. They might be those already.
Yeah, we always do.
Okay.
We did the 23rd.
So is that, but that's when you go out and.
And the 16th.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. I'll figure that.
That would give people that open the break that week. And then next week.
Well, if the walk is at 5:30.
Yeah.
These people got, they have to change clothes.
Right.
Make that. I'll figure that out. You don't have to worry about it.
Right. Setting. But if you
Yeah. The will goes kind of. It doesn't go by regulations.
So sunset at 7:05.
Okay. I don't know if you've been in that trail.
Oh, yeah.
But the trees have really come in. They're around the cemetery, road cemetery.
Like if
They-
women this year,
like
there was.
tunnel.
Nigel, you're doing it, I'm sure Jay there. Tuesday, so they can probably. Yeah, it's nice out there, but Nigel is. But yeah, whenever you end up, if it's the week after.
Does it feel like a Saturday?
Okay. So this is an experiment, and so.
Yeah.
But they're not anywhere close to.
Oh, God. Yes.
I think it's a good idea, yeah, just keep me in the loop, just let me know.
I saw you on Facebook, you're having an open house. But that's the day after. That would be the day after.
I like that.
Doctors will tell you. Oh, okay.
Yours is on a Thursday.
I just said we got a break. I think.
I love it.
All righty, good morning, everyone. Glad to see you all here. Faces happy with great food. Thanks to Books and Breakfast. Darwin and Mark in the back. Welcome to the October District 1 Breakfast. That's crazy. This year is just going by so quick. We have a full plate this morning. We've got some great organization and great speakers. So I will jump in. We have folks from the KU Health Alliance here to talk to you about what they are doing, and then we'll get to our other speakers after that. Invite you all.
Okay. We are KU Community Health Alliance, also known as CHA. We are medical students and we also have pharmacy students here in Wichita. And we can just introduce ourselves first. My name is Taida and I'm a third-year medical student.
My name's Boomie and I'm a third-year medical student as well.
I'm Assad. I'm a fourth year. I'm the last year of medical school. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, just a little bit about us. So this organization started around the pandemic in Kansas City. We have 3 different campuses, one here in Wichita, the larger one in Kansas City, and the third one is in Salina, Kansas. So we have different types of communities, Wichita being a community-based type of system that we are taking care of patients. And the thing about KU, there has been a lot of issues, kind of friction between the institution and just the community members. The problem stems from the fact that a lot of times the institution will come to the neighborhoods, ask for research, provide a few things, but then kind of disappear for a while. And this caused friction, not a good relationship. The main thing is that a lot of people feel abandoned at times. Sometimes we come in for something like research, and sometimes that helps us look good for publications, and we go out elsewhere, and it kind of leaves the neighborhood, the community members kind of hanging. And there are some quotes that were, that we kind of say for ourselves that we thought was pretty important to understand the relationship. In Kansas City in particular, KU was seen as like a big old institution on a hill looking down on the valley of community members. And it just has this bad, image that KU just comes in, doesn't stay, doesn't provide much, and kind of leaves and doesn't do. And that's how Community Health Alliance came to be. And we try to make not only connections with community members, but also with different institutions that also are very effective in the community. And that includes like local alliances, the government, sort of just even hospital systems. And that came to Wichita quite recently, and we are just a few members that are a part of it, and we've already made a lot of amazing connections. And I'm sure some of you know Tracy, that is one connection we have with the CHD Boxing Club. We have many medical students who come and help just like with just the youth, especially those who are involved in sports. If they have injuries, we can help them. We are also involved in the fundraisers, and we also teach them how to take care of themselves, such as CPR, splinting, a lot of important skills, and we hope to do even more and continue to grow. We also have other organizations that we have been working with, especially IRC, especially the refugee population.
Yeah, the IRC, our partnership with the IRC is a good example of like, and even our partnership with CHD Boxing is a good example of the formula we follow. So our motto of the organization is listen, learn, lift. So listen to the needs of the community, listen for what's going on out there, step outside of our study hole, go out in the community and see what's going on, what are the needs, and then learn how we can help, learn what's already being done. Right, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, go out there and give our own piece. There's already leaders out there on the ground doing the work. So we just want to learn what they're doing and then learn how we as medical students really just have our 2 hands or feet and then some medical knowledge background that we can also bestow and help. So learn how we can help in that capacity and then hopefully like lift up the efforts that are already being made and inspire our other medical colleagues to do the same. And really the goal is a twofold approach. It's education, education as in the community service experience that med students and faculty members will do is a transformative experience. You learn about what it means to take care of somebody, meet them where they are, and take care of them as a member of, as just a human being, not a doctor or a student or whatever level you are. And then the other approach is, what can they teach us, not only from what we're doing, but can we invite them to our facility, to our institution, and they can give us a lecture, they can give us a presentation on the things, the lessons they've learned through their work, because they're experts in their field. So it'll help us become better, well-rounded, culturally competent providers down the road. And we are like the next generation of healthcare professionals, and then also policymakers, researchers, administrators. So slowly, if we can equip this generation with these skills, this well-rounded skills, then maybe we can see a shift gradually at a larger scale. So that's kind of the vision that we have. IRC, CHD Boxing Club, ICT SOS, M-Care Clinic. There's been several over the last few years that we've had the privilege to work with.
So with that being said, our main goal for today, we want to get familiar with everyone here, especially in our neighborhood. And we are an institution here, and we're here for 4 years, some of us longer than that. And it would be very important if our students who are going to healthcare get to know the people who we serve in the future. Us 3 already are working in hospitals, and we are being exposed to various patients. But a lot of times in our lessons, we see the disease, we see the disorders, and we don't actually see what happens day to day, like what is happening right now, just people, honestly, rather than the patients. The main reason why we're here is that we are interested in putting together a health fair, and it can be anything. And the reason why we're here too is we want to hear from you all of what you guys think is most important to you regarding to health. It can be careers, if you have a loved one or family members, friends, or even yourself that are interested in some sort of health field. And it doesn't have to be a doctor, it can be a dentist, it could be even pharmacy. We could provide like educational resources and even make it a fun thing to have some exposure. We can also work together to provide services as well, such as blood pressure check, do dental work. And we already have connections, people who we work with, not just medical students, but we have other students who are pharmacy students and dental students. Just to create that, we just want to give back rather than just see you as patients and create that continued communication and relationship. So for anyone to speak right now, if you have any ideas. Right now, we're kind of focused more on like just a generalized of this is what it's like to be a doctor, as well as just how to become a doctor. And we are open if you're interested in other careers in the health field. And even if you're interested in particular health conditions, chronic issues such as diabetes and mental health, which is something that I'm personally interested in, something that might not be talked about much in the community, but we are open to anything, especially since it's geared to you all.
You got it. I was just gonna, so I think you started off with a lot of the issues that I've heard about KU Med being in the area is kind of the lack of commitment to continue. So what is being done concertedly to ensure that there is like a 4-year plan rather than year to year? So as you were saying, you're all med students, which means you cycle in through your classes, you have a thing to get a grade for, and then once you do that, it's kind of an association. So in my academic studies, I kind of accidentally engaged in academic tourism. So how will you make it not just tourism for the med field and a commitment, like a long cycle commitment?
That's an absolutely good question. And that's why Community Health Alliance is here. Yes, we do cycle, but we're trying to create a structure. And we are still in the beginning of it. We just came from Kansas City. We're getting students. And if we can create a good foundation where it's like, okay, we need to actually not only, we're saying that we're part of the community, but we need to actually show evidence, show proof, and actually see you all like today. And yes, we cycle, it's a 4-year program, but when students come in, we are hoping to be mentors for future clinicians in order to, continue to actually stay in the community rather than to stay in the institution, in the hospitals. So we are hoping that when the next students come in, we have a good number who are actually interested in public health rather than just medical prescriptions to, see you every day, every week, rather than if it's just us and then we're gone, Hassan will be gone soon, but we want another Hassan to come in as well.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I can leave my email. We actually have a generalized email as well. We don't have cards yet, but we can definitely provide that for you all.
If you give the email, this is being live streamed, so anybody watching who may not come in here.
There's also we have a website that is not, it's more user friendly for, like we created it so that students can log on and with their credentials they use for school, log on and look at the community service opportunities that other clubs at the school are offering. And it's an active website, anyone can access it. What is it KU serve?
Say it's serve.kumc.
serve.kumc.edu. And that's kind of a quick snapshot of like what's the activity that's going on there. And then we also have like a map of it's a shared website, Kansas City branch and Wichita branch. So you can learn more about us through that website too. And there should be contact information as well. Activity. You'll see if you go on it. It's like there's activities and clubs that upload their own events, and that's a website that we oversee. Again, all in the effort to centralize this and create a structure, a sustainable structure like what you were applying, like so that it can continue for the long term.
A little follow-up. So data is very valuable, and it's valuable to the people that you're attempting to study or prepare for. how will they be able to interact with that data? Is it something that they're gonna have access to give to their provider later? Is this something that is just kept within the institutional review boards? Is it, how are you utilizing and sharing that data? This is how I'm getting at.
That is an excellent question, because that kind of stems from the main issue. A lot of times we get the data, we keep it, and there's no follow-up with the people that we took the data from. And honestly, that in itself is something that we really take note of, and it is something that has bothered many members and many, like, not just community members, but those who are part of the alliance. And just making that connection, I think it would be important to at least have some type of, we do have a newsletter that we have in our school system. But it'll be nice if we could have that newsletter, if there was like some sort of research in the community, we can get those, maybe those who are not part of the Community Health Alliance who have done research in the community to provide for you all as well, because it has important information of the health that is here. We are finding certain conditions that, we need to address this, but the people who are being studied are kind of left in the dark overall, especially if it's a community-based type of research. And this is also, because I have history with like public health as well, which is very, very research heavy. There's like biking, pedestrian safety, and even just like other chronic diseases like diabetes, breast cancer, cervical cancer. And a lot of this information looks good to be published, but a lot of that is not being shared. So you sharing that with us, we will take note of that, especially we, like us ourselves, we haven't done research yet. We are interested in quality improvement if we are to do a health fair, but we would like to share that information with you guys. So thank you so much for that question.
A little on my background, I'm an applied anthropologist, so I've done a lot of cultural and biological studies. So obviously meet up with you after the meeting, maybe get your contact. I have a few people that also would like your information later, so.
Thank you.
So as far as the engagement with the youth, you guys did an excellent job at CHD. We got a couple of them that have thoughts about the medical doctor. All right, so and as far as like the events as far as like doing things with you, with some other organizations like basketball teams, football teams, and stuff like that. That splinting session we had, that's something that we actually, one guy used it, but he wasn't with the gym anymore. I found out, he said, "Coach, blah, blah, blah." He ran it down to, he was excited. He was excited. It wasn't a break, but he was excited that he remembered to put the split, because I seen him walking, they had a thing on, so I did it. So it'd be something that to look into as far as if you need, I can help you with the contacts as far as like youth football programs, youth basketball programs, even having something here in Lynette Woodard, because that comes in handy. And teaching that part, because I'm telling you, this dude was excited that he did it. I was like, what is it? It wasn't broke, but he was excited. He was the 10-year-old.
Yeah, knowledge is about.
Yeah, he was excited. So as far as that moving forward, that engagement with those youth athletic programs, and softball, considering that to them, right?
That's our goal, man. Making it easy to understand, easily chewable, digestible. Not going into a setting with a white coat on and like, oh, this is what you have to do. But more so like, no, let's keep this casual, like this is just a human being talking to another human being. This is things that benefit both of us. One of my favorite things that we've been doing is there's the Madison Garden, the community, the neighborhood association center that's right there.
Yeah.
Like every few months, we've been kind of like a team of just interested students that are passionate. Join them in their like neighborhood meeting where they talk about neighborhood matters, and they give us like a quick 40 minutes, just talk, have a casual conversation about like chronic health conditions like strokes, diabetes, other medicines, and just keeping it very casual. that relationship, you know, no matter how much gets accomplished, the point is that we're having that bridge. That's everything. So more of that. We would love to do that more in more settings for sure.
Another question. For a person who wanted to enroll to be a student, or maybe a doctor or hygienist, I know y'all gave them the starting point, but what is the finances on that, or what would it cost to keep, start them in school? Or is it a cost to that?
That's an excellent question. Fortunately, in the United States, school is not free.
I'll try
So-
to, I know.
Yeah, especially medical school, so a lot of those like professional schools are one step beyond undergraduate university. Like going to Friends University, Duke University, community college, those years. There is a higher price tag on those. But there are a lot of grants and scholarships out there. It's kind of like case by case basis when you apply, and that's separate from taking out loans, student loans. You know, I mean the student loan repayment rate. I mean, student loans to me always scared me because definitely like that stuff accrues and but if people who graduate from professional schools like dentistry, medical school, dental hygiene, pharmacy school, the repayment rate is actually quite good, but it's still a barrier nonetheless. So do you guys have like other
Yeah.
pieces on that?
A lot of us are on like certain programs, and the thing is too, once we graduate, there are some benefits when you are employed at these certain systems that they will not only like pay you back, but they give you a bonus. So a lot of that is something that is a motivating factor as well. So it kind of eases on the stress. And honestly, it's been very helpful, not only for me, but many of my colleagues. And that is something like if we are to have a health fair, we can discuss more of that, because as many people feel like they can't get into like these schools mainly because of finances, but there's a lot of systems and a lot of programs that exist, but no one has heard. So we appreciate that question.
You get the whole thing paid for if you, for example, commit to, all right, I'm gonna practice once I graduate in a underserved community. They'll pay for the whole road. There's also other avenues to the military, and they'll pay for it all. And then just very generous. Again, they take into account your situation, and then they help out. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
My memory serves me correct, I believe. Works here last year. In City Hall.
Yeah, that was like right after New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are doing great work. You are also welcome to always come back to the breakfast to share information or anything. I'm happy to help you.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have some of the wonderful folks at PPMC, Wichita State Public Policy and Management Center. It took me 2 years to always be able to say that correctly. Oh, man.
52 more years.
Welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Jamie Fuller. I'm a research project manager with PPMC. So we're here to kind of talk to you about, we do lots of things. We're here to talk to you about 2 of them today. So I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about the WSU brand study, and then my colleague Brad Richards is here and talk to you about Wichita Collective Impact. So hoping to hear your thoughts on both. So the first thing we're gonna do is kind of a focus group. I'm hoping to get a lot of input from you guys on Wichita State's brand image. So PPMC partners with Strategic Communications, which is our marketing center on campus. to find out sort of how we're doing in terms of the university's brand image. So we talk to lots of people. We talk to people on campus, people off campus, we talk to business folks. The reason I'm here today is because we wanted to get some input from you guys as members of the campus neighborhood. It's been very, very difficult to put together a group of people from this neighborhood because unfortunately, we don't maybe reach out as much as we should. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, they're very broad. Some of them may invite a little bit of criticism, and I would like you to please share that with me if you feel able to. If not, maybe we could talk afterward. I know maybe this is not the so I can't guarantee your anonymity, but if you want to say something that you don't want the world to hear, please just grab me afterward and we can chat privately. Okay, so I'm gonna talk less and listen more. First question I'm gonna ask you, very, very simple. Think of Wichita State. What do you think of?
Antoine Carr.
Sorry?
Antoine Carr. A basketball player, that's what I think.
I would say basketball is a pretty popular answer to this question.
The need for a football team.
Ruben X was crying on the internet.
I'm being from Wichita, I know when I first got here to the city, just kind of like the location of the university is that, it's really being like a really, really nice university, the surrounding community maybe be, a little bit more under-resourced.
I think that's a big part of the gentrification and kind of the overinvestment in small places for other people to come in. So when we think about these neighborhoods and, you know, they're qualifiably seen as like criminal spaces by the city and the police, and the way we do like redlining for housing loans, it's a low income area in general. And, you know, what is the paywall between the people that live in the space versus the people occupying the space? So Wichita State, in a way, is perceived as an occupying force within the neighborhood, although it has obviously redeeming qualities. It's a university, it's promotion of thought and idea, but largely there is a huge disconnect between the occupants of the area and the occupier. So, you know, how do you break down that paywall? And not even if they're just being students, but how do you engage that community into the space without shaming them with that paywall? Because the paywall is the biggest thing that is affecting everybody. And, you know, we can lead into the idea of the predatory loaning systems that our universities use as well. So if we want to get really to the crux of the matter, to become a student, as you were saying, join the military or get egregious amounts of debt. So there's gonna be people just not engaging with it at all. They don't even perceive it as an element of their life. So when we think about people living there in the university, the disconnect is that there is nothing important about Wichita State to these people's lives. So there's an occasional neighborhood barbecue or some like outreach where it's like, hey, we're neighbors, we're community. But really that's just kind of a fetish that is culminated to hide the fact that it is big money, Coke industry, you name it, YMCA, all these big industries that are coming into the area and upping the land values, which is making it so a lot of these poor people are being pushed out. And it's happening all around District 1 where you get these houses that are getting repaired and then all of a sudden rent on them is like $1,500 for a house in a neighborhood where most housing is like $700. So we have this constant investment into areas where the people already living there don't have access. So.
That's one of the reasons that I'm here. I'm a graduate of WSU class of 68. I'm glad I had the opportunity to also attend KU. That was the 62 through 60. What would that be? Y'all can do the numbers. I was gone for 30 years, and I'm glad that I did come home at the request of my parents, who we had a family business. And I've been astounded at just what this gentleman has said. I really can't believe the change, the lack of allowing a certain party or parties to take over WSU. That's one of the reasons that I'm here, is to help wake up those who are still there, because I used to walk to WSU, so I'm familiar very much so. I think our family was like the second family to move across Hillside. Chester Lewis, the attorney with the NAACP, was the first, and yes, there was a cross burnt in his yard. But we're getting the opposite now. No care, no concern, no whatever, buy you out, whatever. Money has done that. What can we do? I'm here.
And I think there's a lot of issues with the fact that a lot of institutions wait for you to come to them. So it's a lot of the, well, we're here, we have these programs. Well, a lot of people, as I was saying, are so disconnected from the operations of Wichita State or any number of charitable operations, where it's like there's a lack of knowledge, and also there's the element of shame of asking for help. So I think it's this weird barrier between people needing help and people offering help, because people are resilient. You know, they want to be self-sufficient, but it's also just killing people as well. So I think there needs to be more concerted efforts beyond like a day or a weekend where we have our ICT street events. Well,
those are good events.
No, they're great. I love those events. Don't get me wrong, but it's also largely for businesses to come in and do a marketing scheme for consumers to come in. But again, it's these things that are happening. They're inviting people from outside of the district to come and participate, rather than them just already being an intimate entanglement. You know, when we think that we have to put effort into something, then we're probably not doing a very good job at making it an inviting experience. Because again, there's prestige that is attached to the university and a cultural prestige that prevents people from engaging in a way where they are normative. So a lot of people, because of that cultural difference, they're not going to be able to stand in that space and feel comfortable, because there is the poor community and then people bailing out a bunch of money, and it's mostly debt, to participate in this very high class type engagement.
Are you familiar with any initiatives or work that has been done that is close to kind of addressing what you're referring to? Or like maybe even like an example? Because I know these problems have existed for quite a long time, and there's been a lot of work that has went into trying to alleviate some of these issues. But is there anything that you've seen that maybe has pushed the needle a little bit forward, and how can we invest more into that idea of structure, strategy, or program?
Well, I mean, free education is a big thing that I think a lot of people will bite onto. So when it comes to mediating grievances within the community, institutions often throw a lot of money arbitrarily on an event that nobody asked for. So if you're just throwing money as like, come to these spaces so that you can see it, well, a lot of people already understand the system to participate. You either have to join the military or get debt. So there's, again, that paywall kind of, and then just the lavish throwing of money, it's essentially wasting resources. And I think the community sees a lot of waste of resources rather than specifically applying these resources, such as, satellite site, like education centers. So you spend 20 grand in collecting charity for food and burgers, where why not have a program for free education, higher education? We already offer in high school and stuff the opportunity to gain college credit, and it's largely free to those students as well. So why can't we start implementing those strategies, particularly with all the taxes that are being collected from this business that is Wichita State? to start putting it into education programs so that people don't necessarily have to be a student to be educated and incorporated again as like an easy way of affiliating. Because all of a sudden, if everybody's a student in District 1, there is no shame of going to the university. Everybody just goes because they are a part of that thing. And so there's this weird thing where we try to use community to make community, but community and unity is the end result. It's a thing that happens from trust building. So it's like, we can't just keep promoting this idea of like unity and we can do it, we're all together. We're not really all together. We're actually talking about that right now, about that deviation and that schism between occupants and occupier. So when we think about it, be very conscientious of how money is spent as charity, because charity is often used as a way of kind of hiding other grievances.
I would like to add to that as well, the cultural difference. And I think how we communicate with our neighbors is something culturally the university emails, but a lot of our neighbors, that's not the forms. And speaking on ICT, the Open Street. So last year I was part of that planning committee, and I've always advocated for a street team. We need, students getting out, knocking on doors. The CSB, the Community Service Board, actually connected with the Neighborhood Association for their cleanup. And so they go out, students go out and help the neighbor with their neighborhood cleanup. Well, this year they brought door knocker or door tags to register to vote, to get that out. So they're trying to engage in that way. And last year, the notice to go out to all the neighbors for Open Streets just said, your street's gonna be closed this day. Well, this year, or no, the second year. So last year I was able to get ahead of that and say, hey, this is a event for our neighbors. We're inviting them. Can we kind of be friendly with our messaging? And it was a beautiful message of, hey, this event is for community building. We would love to see you out. So there is a cultural difference of how we communicate and being mindful of that. And so having folks in positions working at the university that are aware of that, can definitely help with that divide. So and on your point of what organizations perhaps are doing it well, I would highlight the CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement Group. They're actually hosting an event this evening at 5:30 on campus at the Connect space. It's called the Black Agenda. They're going to be talking about how powerful voting is and collective voting and giving examples of here in Sedgwick County, how there's been elections where I think it was the lowest was maybe 40 votes different. So 40 votes, And so if we are empowered with that information, we really can make changes. So I think it's altogether a cultural difference of how we're communicating. Are we sending emails or are we actually knocking on doors? Are we sending things in the mail? Though there's a high cost associated with that. So often that's the last resort, but it has seemed to be effective. And then are we supporting these organizations that are having maybe tougher conversations or pushing back on the status quo, like the CBA group, to begin to build community within communities?
As block captain for the Northeast Heights community, which I'm a part of, and I am block captain, and I have all but been told, you can't, as block captain, say we can't do certain things unless, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm just one person. But I'd like your information, and may I please come to the event tonight, this evening?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll give you info.
I'm somewhat fighting by myself,
Yeah.
but I refuse to give up.
Yep. Yes.
And some people call me Angela Davis,
Okay.
because I got some
Compliment.
training out there in California from the Panthers.
All right. Sounds good. Yes, I'll give you info.
Any more thoughts on what comes to mind when you think of W?
Opportunity.
Say innovation. Their new biomedical.
I know we want to say some good things about this thing, but I mean,
Doesn't have to be good.
the university's structure overall, and it's just kind of saying it's the system that we're given. I think really the most monumental thing that you can do is try to provide the education without like making people be a part of Wichita State. And I think that's a big part of most charitable things is they're giving you something so that you become a part of something. Where I think a lot of people just want to exist, but they also want knowledge and access to these knowledges. So if you can somehow make your moves in a way that don't force people to join a cult, if that makes sense. Because the moment they stop participating with that organization, there's levels of dissociation and it makes it harder to return later. And I think that's an issue with a lot of the demands for justice. Like there's usually a lot of big momentum, a big event, but it all trails off because it's a commitment to constantly care and engage an entire community. So again, I think that idea that powerful entities want you to come to them is one of the biggest shortfalls between Wichita State and local communities, where it just needs to be, they go out in the streets, they're in the schools, they're engaging with parents, they're engaging with adults too. It's funny because we get past the 18 or whatever and get into adulthood, and it's like we stop caring about the human and we're like, oh, you just go do it by yourself. But most of the population in this neighborhood is actually older people. We can see that by the reduction of primary school enrollments is constantly going down. So we know most of the people in these neighborhoods aren't necessarily families anymore. It's an aging population. So engaging with the idea that this is an aging population and that you're going to have to make provisions and grants and access without them having to associate and without having them to like go and get it because they don't care already. If they cared, they would have already gone. It's 2024. We have access to like all this information. So if they're not there, it's because their attention is somewhere else, and usually it's survival.
As we go forward, we still have 2 more presentations. Let's work to be a little more concise in our responses.
So I'm just gonna ask one more question. There's a caveat at the beginning, folks in the room, and not bash the other universities. I'm a KU alum, but we do like to know like sort of how we fit into the university system in the state, right? So KBOR is kind of a family of universities. So compared to the other universities in the state, KU K-State, Fort Hays, maybe Oklahoma, universities in the area, how do you think that WSU compares? Are we more similar? Are we more different? So
They're pretty much all the same, but each university excels in different aspects. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve in life. So that's pretty much a hard question to answer. Now, if I want to do business, I'd probably go to WSU. If I want agriculture, I possibly would want to go to K-State. And now if I want to get in the medical field or journalism or liberal arts, I'm going to get on up to KU if any of the schools allow you, because a lot of these kids don't have the finances, or some of them don't have the academics to make it. Not that they don't want to further their education.
Yeah, I think one of the things Wichita State does well is, we are a neighborhood school. I think we're trying to move past being a commuter school. I think we've done a better job in moving beyond being a commuter school in the most recent years. And so I would say being a commuter school, though, it forces us to value, or at least try to value, community a little bit better. So the scholarships that we offer, I think, differ from a lot of the four-year institutions. I think having access to the Rudd Scholarship, where low-income students have an opportunity to go to school on a full ride free. I think of the Wichita Promise. I think of the Sparrow program that was just launched in collaboration with the city and a couple entities, where folks like my brother, who will probably never have the desire to get a four-year degree, still have the opportunity to access a career where he can make a living and take care of his family. And then this is like a double-edged sword, but one of the things that I struggle with, and it's a yes and, I think Wichita State is ahead of the curve in really trying to engage the Hispanic student population. And I think that is very powerful. And yet I feel as a Black male, who also graduated from Wichita State. Black students are disproportionately not represented and or being recruited at the same rates and or receiving scholarships or financial assistance. And so again, going back to the point that has been made already, look around the community that Wichita State is located in. Why is that? Why are we not engaging those Black students? And I think the symbols that we bang about becoming a Hispanic institution should be just as loud for other minority populations as well.
There's a professor named Hartlett that does work on what we call the model minority. And essentially it's, how the power structure incorporates certain aspects of, an ethnic group. He's an Asiatic fellow, and he discusses the Asian concept as that model minority where, and I think it somewhat ties in with the idea of the Hispanic model minority, where it's like, how do we incorporate this similarity in these likenesses, but in doing so, it also creates a level of bigotry that kind of still pits ethnicities up against each other.
Right.
I would like to make a point too, like, as a graduate of Kansas State and student at Wichita State now, I'm sure we've all seen it, especially in this community, but a lot more investment, some of the technical aspects, like even the innovation campus, you don't see much, at least at K-State, they haven't really made some of those steps to kind of step into those roles of bringing in industry directly to the campus in a variety of different ways. So I think that's something that makes Wichita State a little bit different, or just maybe more distinct as far as the resources in which they provide.
Oh, because they have like the WSU Tech schools.
Yeah, the tech schools, like Go Create, like just some of that stuff they're building on the innovation campus. I mean, there's a building being built right now that I couldn't tell you what they're for, but they look like they're gonna serve in that capacity. I know they got the police training center and things like that in the area. So it's like a hodgepodge of cool, things that if you're a student or even somebody in the community, and maybe some opportunities for you to kind of gain some skills or utilize those resources. So but I know at K-State, they don't really have like that particular, set of innovation resources.
Any final thoughts, last minute thoughts? Thank you guys so much for your input. Hopefully this conversation leads naturally into Brad's discussion about Wichita Collective Impact, which has some of the goals in mind that you guys are talking about in terms of bringing educational opportunities to the community outside of the scope of WSU specifically. So Brenda, you want to comment that?
One question before you leave, can you let us know what you're gonna do with that information and we'll get the results of it?
Yes, so this data will be rolled in with a whole bunch of other focus groups that I've done. I would say this one is a little bit unique, so fitting it into the other folks that I've talked to will be really interesting. None of the stuff you said will be quoted directly. It will all sort of roll into, I call them packets of meaning, but basically just patterns of ideas that are emerging from focus groups. It'll be integrated into the WSU Brand Study Report, which will be published publicly through Strategic Communications. So you can access the full report on their website. Not sure exactly when this iteration will be published. We do 3, so we start in Wichita, because of course we're Wichita State University, and then we move to the South Central Kansas area and the legislatures in Topeka, so we do 3 rounds. So at the very latest, it will be published by May, but if you would like to see the results, it's a public report, you can email me. My email is jamie.fuller@wichita.edu. I will have the report finished by probably the end of November, so if you want to read it, just let me know. I'm happy to share it with you. Also, if anybody has any additional input that they'd like to share, I'll be here for the rest of the breakfast. You can also email me at the same address.
Jamie, can you spell your first name for us?
JAMIE .FULLER.
Thank you.
You guys, thanks.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Brad Richards. I'm the Community Programs Coordinator at the Wichita State Public Policy and Management Center. Wasn't planning on speaking today until we kind of talked about it. I was just planning on coming in supporting, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to connect with individuals who are working with the community, who care about the community, who have their thoughts in the community. And so a specific community initiative that I'm working on with the PPMC is called the Wichita Collective Impact Community Initiative. And what our goals are with this community initiative is to improve third grade reading proficiency and kindergarten readiness, specifically in 67214. And so if you don't know, we've been able to collect data, and a lot of our initiative is data driven. That's extremely important to us. We want to be able to prove the impact we're making. But if you didn't know, kids in 67214 are reading at very low reading levels, especially third graders. Specifically at Spate Elementary, 75% of the third graders are reading at a level 1, which is the lowest level that they can read at. And so what our goal here is with the Wichita Collective Impact is to provide a space not only of collaboration, but direct community impact by bringing together organizations who are already doing the work. Oftentimes we find here in Wichita, it's a lot of siloed community efforts going to involve particular issues. And we all know that one organization is not going to solve a community issue. And so, and I mean, as somebody who's not from Wichita, I understand there's been a lot of some points that have been mentioned, people just throwing money at issues and not necessarily having boots on the ground. And so that's part of what we want to do. We want to bring in organizations, and we've done so already, but bring in organizations to create this network of people who want to achieve some of the same goals as far as improving reading proficiencies and kindergarten readiness. So we have 4 core major partners, and then we work with other partners throughout 67214, but it's partnerships with Wichita Public Policy Management Center, YMCA, Wichita Public Schools, and Cargill. Cargill is one of our main funders. With USD 259, they provide much of the framework and the goals. We want to align our goals with what USD 259 is already doing. We know that teachers need support as well too. There's more that goes into improving these reading proficiencies than just getting better teachers. You know, we have good teachers in our schools, but it's important for our communities, our community organizations, our businesses to also invest and consider this a major issue. And so we work with USD 259 for that support. We also do a lot of data exchanging between USD 259. So again, a lot of this is data driven. We want to know about our students. We want to know where they're reading at. We want to know where they're coming from. We want to know where they're going to move our efforts forward. YMCA, they're our programming partner. And so they're currently located at Spate Elementary. We have a direct staff located at Spate. We're working with the teachers and we're working to develop an after school program. Programming that we've done in the past has been more focused on summer programs. So we've worked at Spate Elementary, but then we've also provided financial support to organizations like the Center, Tabernacle Baptist Church, St. Mark. These organizations have already been doing summer program assistance in the community. So we want to be able to provide that network for people to come together, provide that support for their programming, and then help them develop programming that extends over time. So a lot of these organizations, they want to do summer programming, but now they want to find ways to do after school programming. And so what we do with Wichita Collective Impact, we bring these organizations together. We understand, we do it based on USD 259's curriculum, you know, so we kind of have an alignment as far as the educational curriculum. And then we bring other organizations such as Urban League or Storytime Village or PrimeFit who can help execute some of these educational programs. Or even, you know, Kansas Children's Service League, you know, they provide parent engagement opportunities. So we understand we don't want the center doing education program, food, and all these different ideas that contribute to improving their reading proficiencies. But we want to be able to bring organizations who already do that work to inspire collaboration in this specific area. So that's just a gist. I mean, I would love to come back and do a formal presentation with a bunch of data and things of such a sort. But this is just a general overview of what we're doing. I definitely would love to connect with anybody who's connected to any resources or just wants to come and learn more. We do quarterly meetings every quarter, but I'm trying to get out to the community and meet with organizations one-on-one to understand what are your needs, what are your strengths, how can we help? You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of what people are saying here is that we don't want people just throwing money, but it's important to have boots on the ground. You gotta get some respect, you know what I'm saying? You can't just be doing work from the outside from your desk. And so I believe it's important to get boots on the ground. So
So what's gonna make you different what's gonna make what y'all doing different from the silos that you spoke of? What's gonna separate you, and
Yeah.
make you galvanize things? 'Cause
Yeah, so,
when you look at preaching,
You have a plan.
I'm sorry.
You have a plan.
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I mean, just bringing people together and understanding who does what and what they can't do, I think is extremely important. But one thing that makes this different is that we have a structure that's supported by data. Like, and we can provide data trainings, we provide data partnerships. So it's a lot of organizations out there who are doing the work, but sometimes they may struggle, getting funds because they can't quantify the impact that they
speak the
make.
right.
Yeah, or the research, you know what I'm saying? So we provide support with that as well. And then, I mean, there are initiatives that go out into the community and do great work and provide resources, books and things of such a sort. But we want to be able to say that this intervention that we're making in the community is making direct impact with these students, and we can prove it. And we've collected data in the last 2 years that has helped supplement that, but we know we need to refine some things to make it more impactful. And I think that involves bringing in more organizations to that.
So to follow up on that, you said something about space. So have you seen any type of improvement within the type of 2 years? 'Cause, I got that information. I'm just.
Absolutely.
You want me to answer?
Yeah, I said Jamie's our
Yeah,
researcher.
so I'm on the research side of this project, and we just started, our programming at Spade will start this fall. So we haven't actually done anything in the school yet. We worked with them as a partner org on their summer school, and our summer numbers are very promising. But it's like a 3 or 4 week long program. It can't, it has the effect that it has, it's better than nothing, but we want something that's more comprehensive, that lasts through the entire school year, that helps students along the way. So we're not waiting until we find out like, hey, they're scoring at a 1, we need to intervene now. We're getting them hopefully a little bit sooner than that. So by the time they're taking that district exam, they're ready, they feel confident, they've got the skills that they need to succeed on that test. So if you guys have any ideas, we're still developing our programming at Spade, and we would love to have input from y'all.
Well, so my office actually, Love Pool, I hope is a part of your conversation.
Yeah.
Because we just connected them with Spade and they want to take them on as a partner school. So that would be a further conversation with them, I think, for sure, if you haven't already.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that.
We want to bring space and any resources to connect with.
I know that Launchpad was involved in space. Was there any, are you familiar with Launchpad?
Me personally, I'm not, but I think that's helpful for me to know, if I need to go out.
And I connect with you because I hope you do that follow up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I was definitely gonna connect with you.
So when it comes to like after school programs, for like children that are becoming more self-sufficient, there's a lot of kids that are doing a lot of like household stuff. So for instance, single parents with kids, how are you going to be able to address some of the like family issues of not being able to do after school programs because kids are going to participate in that way? So is there a way to kind of address that issue of like single families?
Yeah, well, we know there's organizations out there who we can partner with or can help provide those spaces for, extracurricular opportunities between parents and kids. Providing resources is one thing, but it's like, those resources can just sit, we provide books is just one thing. So as far as those kids who can't attend the after school program, I think that's a great thought to consider. I will consider that. I know there's like apps out there that track, how much a kid can, if a parent decides to work with the kid using this particular app, you get just like an intervention that way to be able to track that. But what we essentially want to do is incentivize these parents and these kids to come to these after school programs that are being provided. If they can't come, then we need to provide things that welcome them.
I think you kind of said something interesting there. Will like media literacy also kind of be packaged in this? Because obviously there's a lot to media literacy that is kind of tied into how the youth engages with reality now. Yeah. So that might just be something to kind of add into the flavor of education. Is like, look, media is going to be like where you get 95% of your words from, right? So that might be something to incorporate.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other points or questions? And again, I definitely look forward to providing a more structured presentation about the data and stuff in the future. Thank you.
Gonna be a while before I invite Brad back, cause his muscles are popping out, he makes me look small. In the gym, it's Gotta hit the weight room before you.
And he go to the boxing gyms, be careful.
Cut weight, I need size. Don't take anything Coach Tracy said serious, he cheats when you race. You race me with shoes on, put on cleats. I forgot that.
The results was all that matters.
Yeah, flat on cleats.
The results was all that matters.
Well, up next, we have Jesse Bromo. He's our airport director, and we're trying to get him here since he got here. He's doing an awesome job. Won't put any of his thunder because he's gonna present, but the airport has done some wonders with his leadership. Grateful for you being here, and kick it off to you.
Good morning, everyone. Director of Airports, Wichita Airport Authority. Do I need to stand here? I like to walk around when I talk, I can't help it. Okay, so I got pictures because it's always easier to talk through with pictures. And a couple of things I wanted to update you on is air service and some development. Those are usually the two most asked about things that we have going on. But the Wichita Airport Authority does own and operate two airports, Eisenhower National and Jabara. Jabara is our GA relief airport, general aviation relief airport. So it's all that extra overflow of air traffic that we can't facilitate at Eisenhower under space operations. And so it's nice to always have the secondary airport. And we've got a lot of activity between both. One thing, there's over 4,500 acres worth of property. And I think that makes us the, if not the one of the largest land we call. We have a tenant who's the landlords. There you go. Sorry. So starting with air service connectivity and what our goals are to do to increase our network to the hub. That will get you where you want to go. That was not my animation. My staff like to put that. I think she does a little drum roll. So at the end of 23, we had a lot of good air service wins. It is not common to get that many new service markets announced within a 2-week period, but we had them. Las Vegas and Phoenix were two markets we had prior to COVID. Once COVID hit, we lost those. They were our two biggest markets too. And so Southwest said, we're going to bring that back starting November 5th, and we'll have daily service to Las Vegas. American came in and said, we're going to pick up the Phoenix daily service. They've got a nice big hub there, so it takes you all over the West Coast. And they said, and we're going to add a seasonal flight to Miami for you. The big kicker was DCA. And DCA was something that was requested by local businesses quite a bit. And then Senator Moran also recognized the need for that in order to maintain Wichita's competitiveness in the aerospace industry. You got other communities that were trying to steal Wichita businesses that had a direct flight to DC. And that's where a lot of the hub is for a lot of the contracts that we need to continue to sustain, especially on the defense side. And so with a lot of good support from our good friend, Senator Moran, we were able to get that service starting January 8th of 2024 this year. And so by the end of calendar year 23, we actually finished just 2% below 2019. 2019 was the record year. That was kind of everybody's big pinnacle. And so getting within 2% meant we're COVID recovered. It also, having these things start at the end of the year, put us in a great position to have a fantastic 24. And so far, so good. Now, I hear a lot of requests for direct flights. We need more direct flights, a direct flight here, a direct flight there. Just keep in mind that direct flights are only relative to where you want to go. And so we try to get you to as many of the hubs as possible because that's how airlines plan their network. That's how they plan their service. It's not just, can Wichita go to DC? How many Wichitans are going to DC and back and forth? Those are your passengers departing each way daily, the PDUs. that isn't what drives it. It's also, what else can we do through DCA? We can get you to the Northeast. We can get you to other locations. So you can hop over to New York right through DC. There's actually a really good time block that we have right now for that. And so, but that's how the airlines think. How do we develop the network? Right now, we got 16 nonstop destinations. 5 are seasonal. You see some gaps in the system, which I'm gonna go over. This is record passengers. I mentioned most of our months this year have been records. February, April, June, July, August. So we're keeping up with 19 numbers and sometimes we're beating them. So we're going to have a good 2024 if things continue to play out this way. Mentioned there's some big gaps in our system. I don't want to bore you with a lot of that detail, but I'll come back here. Okay. New York, Northeast, with a big request. Airlines aren't ready to get into New York for us. We've been trying, we've asked. LA is a big market for us. We have seasonal service provided by Allegiant Airlines, and we have great load factors, but LA, especially LAX, is very impacted and it's hard to get into. And so you got to look at the smaller airports around the area to see if you can find something in Burbank, John Wayne, Long Beach. And we also have Delta, who's trying to go to Salt Lake City. We're trying to get that set up. We have direct flight to Seattle right now, but there's still lots of gaps and opportunities that we're trying to fill. But it is not all, and I'll come back to your question. It's not all our decision making. It's not the airport authority who gets to decide who flies and where they fly or what they charge. A lot of times you can liken us to being the mall manager. You know, the mall manager takes care of the facility, makes sure lights are on, you know, toilets are flushing and you got good parking, right? It's the tenant responsibilities, those storefronts, they're the ones who actually run the business operation. And so the airlines are the ones making these decisions, but we have an opportunity to engage with them. So we're constantly trying to sell Wichita, going out to different conferences with them. We sit down with them, we present business cases. Even the airlines that we have currently serving will go and say, hey, American, great service, and we're having these numbers, but the time block doesn't really work for a lot of the connections. If you tweaked it here, you could actually pick up some more gap. And so we try to make that business case for them. And it's work that's done constantly. You had a question, sir.
That's exactly where I was going with my question. You said we have record numbers. Are they proportional across our airline partners? Or is somebody lacking that will turn around in a couple months and say, fly Wichita?
No to the last part. So we measure by market share, and right now American Airlines has the greatest market share. United is not too far behind. Then Southwest, and then we've got less flights from the other carriers, so you'll see that the drop off. But American United drive it. American especially, because they were the ones who invested heavily into our market last year and gave us those 3 new routes towards the end of the year. So even though every airline has its challenges, American definitely has its challenges. I know I've missed a flight connection. I've been running through, you know, terminals A and B trying to make my connections in Dallas. I've missed flights in Chicago. I've spent overnight because of thunderstorms in Atlanta. I get it. Every airline has their issues, and it's a really delicate balance. You know, all the different things that have to go right in order to get you there on time. So when it happens, just remember that's that little blessing, because there are so many moving pieces to get to that point. But we're having good numbers with all the airlines actually right now. And so the biggest challenge for them in growth is the Boeing effect. There's a lot of aircraft that aren't being certified, so there's not a lot of deliveries going on. And so typically we'll see the mainline carriers, American, United, Deltas, they'll order the bigger aircraft, the newer aircraft. And once they get that, they're able to push down their fleet into older aircraft. And this, I don't want to call them secondary carriers, but the next line of carriers get those aircraft, and it trickles down in the industry. And so what we're not seeing, especially for airport our size, our market size, we still rely upon regional jet service. we're not seeing the capacity that's there. So they had to overcome the pilot shortage. They finally got to that point. They're trying to overcome the captain shortage. And then all of a sudden they got hit with an aircraft shortage. And so they've made adjustments. You're not seeing additional flights when you have added capacity. You're typically seeing an upgauge in aircraft, so just bigger planes are coming with more seats. But because of that aircraft delivery delay, 24 isn't looking as big for growth from all the airlines across the board, across the entire nation. So it's not just us. We recently did a study, and Valerie Wise is my air service marketing communications manager. And she got with Wichita State to do the study for us and try to figure out what is the economic impact of air service to Wichita or to the region. Because we serve more than just Wichita. We serve the entire region, sometimes about 2/3 of the state, and the population will come in. But you can see total economic impacts, over 2,700 jobs, 72 million in revenues, wages, the total economic impacts. There's a lot of trickle effect and a lot of, impacts. As airlines grow, they're hiring more folks. And if you know of anybody, by the way, go to Envoy. They're the company that contracts for American Airlines. They're trying to hire more people. And so just like a lot of other companies, they've been struggling with their workforce. And leakage, this is a big term that we use all the time, leakage. We want to be able to retain people in our community, in our region, in our what we call catchment area. And we want to retain them here because of those economic impacts. We do not want to see people driving Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City, and using their airports. We want to see the money reinvested here. So it's almost like promoting shop local, so fly local. And it really helps out. And if you want additional service, best way to grow our service is to use the service. We use the service we have now, we fill the seats, we show how strong our market is. And believe me, for a community our size, even though our region is about 1 million strong, we're still a very small market comparatively nationwide when airlines are looking at us. And so we're always trying to prove ourselves.
Can you explain that, the leakage, that's meaning 159 jobs were lost because people were going to the surrounding airports? Is that what that means?
It's back on the county and the catchment area, so it's our greater regional area, not just the county. Resulted in 159 job loss, yes, 30.6 million and 12.6 million in wages lost. So it's the same multiplier.
So meaning though, if we did have those, we would have an additional 159 jobs to service that.
We should, and if you've ever done economic impact modeling, so you get the multiplier, right? And so then you have the multiplier effect against each employment. And so each person lost has the same multiplier. So if you left, it's just that negative.
Right, gotcha.
How do you know? How do you know I'll leave here and go to Kansas City to connect to a flight? How do you know? How do you know that?
You track everything.
I believe you. I believe when you say that.
So there is a lot of data collection that goes on, right? When you click on that website, accept the cookies. Okay. I want to book my travel. So it's not actually us per se, but USDOT tracks it, airlines track it, and then they filter out all the data. And so you actually don't get clear data audited until July for the previous calendar year. So there's a big lag. But when we pull that data, we get to see by zip codes. So they go, oh, okay, 67205, 209. That's where this person lived when they went on the Southwest site and booked travel, but they booked it out of Kansas City. And so
Now, this is the air capital of the world, isn't it? And that's what they call Wichita?
Yes.
I just thank you.
Yep. And so that's how we.
Manufacturing, not.
But I don't have any of that data. Okay, so here's some fun stuff that's going on, new things that are happening all across both airports. Start down here on the lower side, lower left, Clements Aviation. If you ever driven by Jabbar Airport, you'll see Clements Aviation signs all over the place now. And when Dwayne Clements came over from Syrian Field and started investing into Jabbar, started seeing a lot of growth and development. And we haven't seen a transfer of economies. They're not going from one FBO to another within that airfield. They're actually growing from other locations in other regions. So it's actual growth. He's building his next hangar right now. Down in the bottom right, we just built ourselves a new maintenance facility building. And so we were using, up to this point, one of the original buildings that was around 6 years. That was not in good condition. And so we built a new facility. We have snow removal equipment, equipment, and folks are stationed there for maintenance. The center picture, get into Eisenhower. We've got a new hotel that's going up. So if you come off Eisenhower Parkway off the Alcella, you'll see it being built right there, just in the Hampton. Top right.
End on that?
Say that again.
Brand of the new hotel.
So it's going to be dual branded. It's going to be both the Hilton Garden Inn and Homewood Suites. And so if you've ever seen, it's kind of a new trend. If you've ever seen a dual branded hotel, when you walk in, you've got choices in the lobby area. You either go check in left to this brand or right to this brand, and it's kind of split in half. So they're both part of the Hilton family. Top right, TSA. Now TSA gets such a bad rap, but we have great TSA agents. The majority of the time, people give us compliments about our TSA process rather than complaints. I mean, we get those too. But when we talk to other airports and our peer airports, especially peer markets, it's the opposite. Like 90% of it is all bad and only 10% is good. Ours just won an award for best small airport our size. And so hung a banner over there. That's the team picture that they took for it. It was a fantastic job. I mean, that is their operation. And those are all the screeners that are they're local. And so they're all from here. Okay, top left. This is a concept drawing because it's about to open up, but they haven't finished with signage and all those things yet. But when you walk into, first of all, how many of y'all have been in the terminal? Okay, so you're pretty familiar. And when you walk in the terminal in the center on the first floor, there's an information desk. Across from that, that is the Aviators Cafe. There's a little bar cafe area. One of the hardest things to do in a market our size is to make sure your concessionaires make money. How do you business model when you have big ebbs and flows of passengers and customer behavior? Passengers don't always want to buy something, food, drinks, prior to going through TSA. I want to just get through TSA, it stresses me out. Then I'll worry about food on the other side. But you still have a lot of employees that are there. And you have people that are coming, that are dropping off, meter greeters. And so there's this demand for additional coffee, maybe some snacks, or maybe even after hours when there's been flight delays and you're trying to get out and you're like, I just need to grab a little something. And so it's hard though to business model and pay for all that staffing for all that period of time. And so what we ask them to do is take a look at the industry trends that are going on right now with self-service markets. And so that's what this one is. So we got a lot of security cameras in there, but there are going to be vending type options for you to explore and to do a self-check. Was it something I said?
Too much in my hand.
Okay, so that's Eisenhower. Here is a couple aerial charts. We have a lot of development going on. I mentioned how many acres we mentioned between the two airports. And there's so much occurring in both right now. Just from an interest standpoint, we're processing a lot more applications than ever before. We're talking to a lot of different companies, different sizes, local and from outside, that are asking us about how development works with us. This is Jabara. And Jabara's got a couple projects going on right now. Well, quite a few actually, but the big ones that I just want to just mention, WSU Tech, this is their NCAT campus. This is Webb Road right here. North is facing that way. NCAT campus, WSU Tech is looking to expand to the south. We got a grant to help them out to do infrastructure development. So we're building out more taxiway and ramp space for them, which really paves the way for their future development. And so we're working on that now. We've got another one. This was a fantastic public-private partnership where private money is coming in to help us start putting into infrastructure, and a single hangar is going in here. But that one's really going to open up opportunities for us to start developing to the future on the east side of Jabara, because west side is already getting pretty compacted. So we're excited about that. Same thing with ICT. We actually don't have very much, you can see by all the yellow dots here, all the different buildings are lined up. We don't have a lot of oceanfront property anymore for us against, for the aeronautical side access. And so we're running out of a lot of that space. So we're starting to get creative and trying to think about outside of those established areas. And so once you start getting into greenfield locations, now you're talking about branding developments, environmental reviews, and there's just a lot of things we're trying to get done and out of the way to make it more shovel ready. So when folks do want to develop that, we're open for business. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. Sir.
You kind of touched on it already, but I just wanted to make a compliment that as far as access to the airport, I'm blind, and that makes navigating the airport a little difficult. But I have found that our airport here is the easiest and almost I shouldn't say almost, inviting to be able to navigate as a blind person even to get from check-in to my gate and onto the plane. I dread going to the airport in other areas, but this one I can breeze right through, and lots of help, just easy.
That's fantastic to hear. Do you ever use the app, the service IRA?
No, I don't really.
Do you ever?
But I'm aware of it, but okay. I've got enough functional vision that I don't really require that.
There's a service provider out there that helps with assisting, giving wayfinding and guidance if you're unfamiliar and you're sight challenged. So that's why I was asking.
And most airports have a free IRA available. I don't know if ours does or not, because I don't really use it. I
believe it's free. It's supposed to be.
Not.
We paid for it, but I mean.
Right. Yeah, it's free to the user in most airports. But if you use it all the time, there is a paid version for customers if you just want to use it in your neighborhood even. And it's the same thing. But Be My Eyes is a similar app that uses all volunteers. And so it's totally free to the end user as well, wherever you go.
Appreciate it. Question?
I know KCI major infrastructure developments. How has that impacted Wichita primarily as far as the competitive aspect of with their new development things going forward? Has that contributed to some of that leakage, I guess you could say? I mean, maybe that's hard to tell.
It's too soon to tell because of my data lag, right?
Yeah.
But we had that concern going in. Kansas City was one of our biggest competitor markets. And so, yeah, they have a much nicer, better terminal process that attracts people into there, because it also attracts new service. Yeah. And so what's funny too, I'm friends with the airport director there. And what's funny is a publication, I don't remember the name, and probably good I don't, did a listing of best airport in every state. And so I went to a conference and the director was there and he goes, "Oh, Jesse, I got something. Did you see this? The best state airport rankings? Guess you won for Kansas." And Kansas City right there. They're in Missouri, folks.
Yeah.
I said, I go, it's okay. It's okay. Because once we take the Royals and Chiefs from you, we're going to annex the airport too. So welcome to Kansas. But yeah, it's competitive. So we'll see. Hopefully not too much. Yeah. Any other questions? I feel like I'm forcing everybody to leave. You're going to have like half the
No, I was gonna comment, it is, I took my parents to KCI airport, they wanted to fly direct to LAX. And, it is hard to try to convince them to support local, when they know they want a direct flight. And so I know that's one of those challenges that, when you were saying earlier, like, we need to support local but yeah, it's tough, especially when, I think my parents, they see it as a barrier, like to try to do connecting flights and everything like that. Versus someone like me would be, okay, I prefer direct flight, but
I kind of like those broken up flights a little bit. It gets you out, gets you off the airplane for a minute.
Yeah. You can say, I've been here and I've been here and I've been here.
Get the state magnet, right? You're like, man. My parents were the same way, and I used to live in Topeka and Manhattan, and they used to fly only to Kansas City because they wanted direct flights. And I finally saw them like, if you're going to go to anywhere else other than the airport I'm running, why don't you go to Wichita and at least experience that? And they finally did and said, okay, fine. We did a little stop in Vegas and Phoenix, coming out of Burbank, and they're like, oh man, we love Wichita. It's the brand new terminal. It's a nicer process, easy to get in and out of TSA. And so there's pluses and minuses. Yeah, they had to add a stop, but they started to enjoy it.
But by the time you figure in the transportation to the next airport, parking and all those other things, flying out of Wichita isn't too bad.
Yeah,
it really is.
Absolutely.
And I've done a lot of flying, especially this year. I think I've done more this year than I just came back from Vegas 2 weeks ago. I'm going to LAX next week, and
we appreciate you flying ICT.
Been to Orlando this summer. So, yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna hand it over. Get out of here.
All right, last but not least, we're gonna welcome Heather. This is your first district breakfast.
This is my first district breakfast.
All right, District One does it again. So I want to welcome Heather. She is new to Wichita, new to Wichita, having a great time so far. So turn it over to you.
Thank you. How much time have we got? Your special of every time. Oh, I won't need that much. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather. I'm the new executive director of Downtown Wichita, and I have been a Wichitan for 2 months now. So I moved here from upstate New York, and let's see if I can get this. So have many of you ever been to New York State? Okay, so you know that big city that's there? I'm not from there. I'm 4 hours north from a city called Syracuse. Pretty good at basketball. I think we've seen the Shockers and the big dance, and yeah, we won't talk about that anymore. But anyway, it's great to be here in Wichita. My background is in urban planning, affordable housing development, and downtown management, and so I'm pleased to bring that skill set here. When I heard that there was an opening in downtown Wichita, I said, well, I've never been to Kansas before, so let me come see. And honestly, coming into downtown Wichita, you have an impressive city. We have an impressive downtown. And so it's a privilege to be part of it. So good things are happening in downtown Wichita. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the fact that downtown Wichita is an organization that exists. So we're a 501c3, we're a nonprofit. Our main areas of focus are developing downtown. So in the past 15 years or so, since we did a downtown master plan in 2010, we've seen $1.7 billion worth of investment in downtown. I saw some before and after pictures the other day. I feel very fortunate to be coming here at this time. You all have laid a great foundation for this kind of next wave of growth that we see happening in downtown. We do marketing, so we help promote events, we help promote businesses that are there, getting people to come downtown and shop local, and enhancing vibrancy. This is the area that really gets me excited. This is little things like making sure that there's no litter on the sidewalk, making sure that we're cleaning up graffiti, that there isn't dog waste to step in when you're strolling around downtown. Those little details make a big impact. And so that's a piece of that, of enhancing vibrancy. We do have a QR code. If you're tech savvy and want to scan that, you can connect to we have a newsletter. We have opportunities to get involved. I have flyers over there along with my contact information that have different ways that you can get involved in downtown. For example, I'll run through some of this to go. Okay, so where is downtown Wichita? There's a lot of debate in the community about this. I'm learning through the parking meters that some people think they're downtown, some people don't think they're downtown. The official downtown boundaries are, we go from the river to Washington and from Kellogg to Central, and you can see half of that red boundary, that downtown district, is District 1. So I work in District 1, and I
And I live up here in Old Town in District 6. So I make that long commute across the boundary every day. It takes me about 7 minutes to walk to work. I sold my car when I moved to Wichita. Don't need it. I have a husband with a car, which helps. But for my day to day, I'm just walking through downtown, seeing what needs attention. So enhancing vibrancy, I mentioned, kind of the clean program. We also look to beautify. We have a great group of volunteers that run Flowers on Douglas. They fundraise for this every year. A great way to get involved is to, have your employer contribute to Flowers on Douglas. It's tax deductible. We activate the transit shelters. We promote local businesses through that. Through a partnership with Envision Arts Gallery, we activated Gallery Alley just last year, actually, and have artwork that's tactile, that changes, that's accessible to the community 24/7. We have a downtown cleanup day. So this is, mark your calendars, Saturday after Earth Day. I believe it's April 26, 2025. Anybody who wants to can come downtown and help us clean up. We ask you to sign up so that we know how many lunches to buy that day. We'll treat you to lunch. You can bring your family, you can bring your colleagues. It's a great opportunity to be involved in the center of our neighborhood. Holiday programs. So back in September, we started planning for holidays. So we typically do light pole banners to add to the festive environment. You can see those are matched with the city's lighting. We help promote the city's activities in Navisker Park with the tree lighting that goes on. We're looking to go bigger in future years. I'm working on the budget for this. So stay tuned. And also, if there are things that you want to see in downtown to celebrate your holiday season, reach out, let me know. This is a group effort here. I mentioned ways to get in touch. We have our email blast with text notifications. We'll let you know a whole list of events that's going on that week. I'll be honest, that is my best resource right now as a new person to the area. I look at our own newsletter that our comms team is putting out. I'm like, oh, I want to do that this weekend. Or I didn't realize that was happening. So I mentioned Project Downtown and that $1.7 billion of investment that we've seen since 2010. We also see continued growth from that. So we've got this pipeline of redevelopment projects. Places that were parking lots now have buildings on them. There's a big hole in the ground where KU and WSU are working on the biomedical center. This is going to be a transformational project. And I'll mention some other things that are going on right now in downtown. So if any of you are familiar with the old Brunswick Plaza building, this is about to become an AC Marriott hotel. So this will be our, I believe, third Marriott in downtown. The Ambassador is part of Marriott with Courtyard Marriott. So this is another one of their brand beautiful historic renovation. They're using historic tax credits, which means they have to follow certain standards that protect this wonderful asset in our community. Let's see here. We have a parking plan and wayfinding plan going on right now through the city of Wichita. So very important as we manage our downtown to manage parking, to have good signage so people know where to find it, to have meters so people can't hog that spot all day, so we share the resource, and to have wayfinding signage. Our signage is maybe a little bit dated. I will say that on the record. So I really look forward to the new wayfinding plan that the community is working on right now. What do we need to sign? What does it need to look like? How do we get people there? I mentioned this biomedical campus. This is the most transformational project that I believe ever happened in downtown Wichita. $300 million worth of investment. This is going to bring 3,000 students to downtown, 200 faculty and staff jobs, 1,600 support staff. So this area of downtown that was the old site of a hotel, we took a lot of bricks out of the ground and saved some of those at our office for posterity. But this is going to bring so much activity to the heart of our central business district. So already we're seeing magnifying effects of this. Other healthcare providers are going to have purchased property. So HeartSpring is a suburban provider of special services for kids with developmental disabilities with special needs. And so they're moving their outpatient facility right next door. They bought 2 different parcels. So one of the part you can see this is brick and mortar event space. The brides would be up in arms if they had to cancel weddings. So they're going to honor all the commitments they have over the next 2 years, and then they're going to begin work on this new facility there. We're seeing increased demand for housing. So this Vantage 906 project, that's gonna bring more than 300 new units of housing to a site that's been vacant in our downtown for 75 years. This is the corner of Waterman and Washington Streets. And then you see Learning Lab Wichita, we've got great other nonprofits moving in, doing innovative models of education. So this is our biomedical corridor that's kind of resulting from this catalytic investment. So you see, we already had KCOM, now we're gonna get Wichita Biomedical Campus. We've got ComCare, the county has announced a medical facility, and then you have Ascension View Christie up, less than 10 blocks north, creating this whole corridor. So what we can do then as the downtown organization is say, hey, medical provider, are you looking for space in the core? We're gonna help you find it along this district and help brand that and bring more investment in more tax dollars into our city's core. Let's see here. Other great things that are happening downtown. How many of you went to the drone show that Exploration Place had? So Exploration Place just opened their brand new amphitheater. The other side of the building, on the east side of that gorgeous museum, they're creating this one-of-a-kind outdoor play space. This is meant to compete with the Gathering Place in Oklahoma City. I have not been, but I hear it's phenomenal. Somebody at a conference went to the International Downtown Association conference in Seattle about a month ago. Somebody from LA came up to me from downtown LA and they said, I'm hearing big things about Wichita. I see that you're from Wichita. And I said, yeah, big things are happening. What are you hearing? And I'm thinking he's gonna, mention some of these projects that have been in the news. And he says, I hear that, you're growing and you're gonna be the next Oklahoma City. And I was like, well, I think we're a little cooler than that. I think we're gonna be like the next Denver, Austin, something a little more pizzazzy, because that's the feeling I get. When I first came here to Wichita, I felt that entrepreneurial vibe, that energy, kind of that spirit of collaboration. It's pretty rare. And the fact that you have all these projects moving in the same direction, strengthening the core of our mighty city, it says a lot. Let's see here. We've got, new hospitality and residential development plan right next to the ballpark along the river, so highlighting that asset. I just learned that the multimodal facility is gonna break ground. Is it next Friday?
Yeah.
Next Friday, October 11th. I don't wanna steal anybody's thunder, but that's a huge thing. To have, this great resource that connects into public transportation. I'm a huge public transit nerd. Again, I sold my car, so I need better public transit.
9 o'clock.
At 9 a.m. next Friday, October 11th, is the groundbreaking for that multimodal transit facility. So this is the development map that we had in 2012. That's the development. That's the development map today. So this is after completion of 110 different projects over 15 years. So the natural question from that is, what's next? When we look at the pace of development we have in our downtown, we now have to shape that. So I feel like the last master plan was convincing people to develop downtown. People get it. They understand that you're going to get a return on your investment. You're going to make it easier to hire employees if your headquarters are located downtown, because then your employees have something to do at lunchtime and after work. They can have a social life that revolves around their workspace. So the next step is to really shape that development and say, this is a special place. How do we honor our history? How do we preserve our historic assets, but also make room for some landmark new projects and growth? Who are we designing that for, right? How do we grow inclusively? How do we address affordable housing demands? How do we elevate the design in our district? And more than anything, how do we connect pieces that are already there? When I was visiting, for my first interview, I had dinner at the bar at Public, and it was about 8 at night, and I said, I hear that there's this lighting of fire pots at Keeper at 9. Can I walk there from here? The bartender says, I wouldn't. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, there's just not much in between. And so I said, well, let me go see about this. So I walked it, and it took me 20, 25 minutes. It was a nice walk, but it was boring. There wasn't a lot to pass by. It didn't be unsafe, it was just not an active corridor. And so part of our role is to think about how do we activate Douglas Ave? How do we provide those connections between the great neighborhoods that are already there and the great resources in our community? So really, we're looking at the next 10 years to provide a roadmap for growth. So how do we bring more activity to the district? We put out a request for proposals last 2 Fridays ago. Those proposals are due October 25th. So we're going to search for a planning firm to come in and listen to the community and synthesize your ideas. So part of the reason that I wanted to come here today when Councilor Johnson invited, and my board member invited me to come here and speak with you all is because we're going to rely so heavily on community engagement. Downtown is in the middle. You know, one thing I learned early on here, a lot of people say you're either east side or west side in Wichita. I picked the middle. I didn't want to take a side. You know, I love being in the middle of our city. Downtown truly is everything here. So if you're not participating in this process, you're letting somebody else shape your downtown. So I just want to give you a sense of when this is gonna take place. So again, we released the RFP. We'll get those responses in later this month. We'll be selecting the firm by December. There'll be a whole interview process with the selection committee. Then we hit the ground running in January. And what that means is intensive community engagement. We're gonna have charrettes. We're gonna have architects sketching your ideas in real time. We're gonna look at specific sites that are vacant now and say, what if we did this? What if we did that? We wanna know how Wichitans wanna use downtown. What do you wanna see there? What's missing? And how can we encourage that to be filled in? We're looking at about a 6-month completion process for that. So by summer, we're hoping to have our finished plan. We're couching this as an action plan because, you know, if you look through in the back of our RFP, we compiled all the plans that the community has done through the years. We've done a lot of planning and it's great to plan, but at some point you have to act. And so we're really saying, you know, we want to work with companies who will with planning firms that will lay out strategies for implementation, whether that's public policies that we need to enact, you know, to fund different initiatives, whether it's best practices that have worked in our competitor cities. We're competing for talent here, so we need to be the best downtown that we can be. And so, you know, goals of Project Downtown: increase the density, make those walks more interesting, play with different architecture. I took these pictures when I was in Seattle for that conference. This is their public library right in the heart of their downtown. This is the Museum of Pop Culture, Frank Gehry design. You know, what do we want people to remember when they leave Wichita, right? If they're visiting, what do we want them to take away from them? And then what's the source of pride for people who do live here every day? This is a picture I took in Stockholm at the holidays. My husband's from Sweden, so we traveled there. Why shouldn't we have that, right? Why shouldn't we have a celebratory environment around the holidays? And then I mentioned my passion for outdoor maintenance and clean and safe. So, you know, to be proud of your downtown, it's got to present its best face every day. So we're going to be looking at residential growth. In the last plan, there were mentions of a string of pearls between the cultural amenities on First Street that hasn't really been enacted. We haven't branded First Street. So is that something that we want to pick up again and say, how do we highlight this, make it a real destination? And then, you know, looking at all these details that affect how we live every day in our downtown. Are we creating a downtown that's accessible? Do we have great ADA access? Is it walkable for everybody regardless of their abilities? As our community ages, can they age in place? Can they navigate downtown with limited mobility? And so all of this goes into shaping our downtown core. Again, your input is going to shape this plan. So I would urge you to sign up for our newsletters, get in touch with me. My email and my phone number are on the cards over there. We want to hear what's important to you. And so mark your calendars for January for the public planning process, and then again for April for our big volunteer event. But I'm open to any questions you have. And
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the inclusivity part. And one of the struggles that I find is that we say we want it to be a downtown for everyone, and yet sometimes the folks who are at the table are not reflective of the evolving population that's going to make up downtown. For example, the biomedical school will bring in these 3,000 students and they'll be diverse. And probably will be the first time that they've had any interaction with Kansas. And so how are we tapping into their experiences and their fresh perspective to help cultivate a downtown that not just works for Wichita, but the future of Wichita as well? So I hope that you all can maybe take that into consideration.
I so appreciate that, and that is a top priority. You know, one of the reasons that, you know, I decided to come here and take this job opportunity is because I felt that kind of welcoming attitude towards newcomers in Wichita. I'm not sure if you all have experienced that, but that's something that was really palpable to me of, you know, there's space for new people here. And I want to make sure that as we develop our downtown, you know, we highlight our diversity of businesses and business owners. We highlight opportunities for people at all income strata to find housing in downtown to be able to walk to work. If I've got a service job at the new biomedical center, maybe I don't want to have to, you know, commute half an hour by bus. Maybe I want to be able to walk to work. So what options are available to me? You know, there's a policy approach to that. There's working with the private market, just making sure that developers are aware of, you know, state financial incentives. So our role is really to be kind of the matchmaker and moderator between those forces and say, you know, this is what the community wants. Here are the tools to do it. And how do we create a truly inclusive downtown? Yes.
So I think one thing that maybe some themes that get captured around our downtown. You're not being from here, they kind of live and learn. So the homelessness issue in the downtown area, and we at EKC are working on some really large projects involved in that. And I just wanted to ask, have you all been involved or part of any of these discussions? And if not, how?
Absolutely. So, you know, we're involved in the MAC, the Multi-Agency Center that's coming in. We're working with Mitzi Bruckner on research that, so we introduced her to business owners to talk to about kind of the economic impacts of homelessness on small business. But we're also working with providers to say, you know, you may not be aware that somebody's living in this location. Are they connected to services? You know, how do we connect them?
Especially talk about like First Street.
Yes.
That's one.
Absolutely.
Well, I know there's a lot of desire for this to be an inclusive space. We often talk about how we make it inclusive, but year in and year out, that becomes revealed not to be the case. And it seems like more and more the way we operate our perspective is through the lens of the owner class. So when we're moving forward, as you were saying, in addressing policy and even laws and advocating for the changes in policies and laws, there's got to be a shift in the mentality of who the model is working towards, because the overall model you're working towards is not inclusion, it's capitalism. So it is a competitive field. It's now becoming a competitive downtown to occupy this public space as private entities. So there's a lot of talk about inclusion, but we also know what happens when there's more property, more value going into these spaces. It's more police as well. So when we think about mobility and access to these spaces, we know that economic indicators will prevent people's access to this place. So as you're saying, proper transportation, I think, is going to be one of the most key things in promoting such things and like cheap, almost free mobility to get people past, again, the paywall, past the ownership of the space, because people, Coke Industry bought a bunch of downtown, for instance, to have a music fest recently. So we know that all this property is getting bought up by big businesses, and it is necessarily pushing people out of that access, even though public fairways, public, but the ownership of those buildings and the right to call the police are left to those business owners. So there's plenty of instances where, because of cultural differences, the cops are called on people to get them out of these spaces. So if we don't kind of accommodate the need for like working class protections in these private spaces, a lot of those people that you want to come in as the makeup of Wichita aren't going to be able to be feeling welcome, to say the least.
I understand the concern. in terms of ownership, I don't own property downtown, I rent. And, you know, I think that, there's always that struggle between, you know, a community's growing, it's becoming more prosperous. You know, how do we maintain opportunities for everybody who isn't a property owner? I think public space is so important to that. You know, I think that's part of the reason that I have such a passion for, you know, the right of way and the spaces in between. I will call code enforcement on a property owner who's not maintaining, you know, their public realm for everybody else. And so I think that's kind of understanding the dynamic between, you know, if you're a property owner, you have a responsibility for the public facing assets that you own. And if you're a member of the community, you have a responsibility to also keep that nice for everybody else. Not throw things out your window onto the sidewalk. I can't tell you how many Quick Trip cups I've picked up just in the past 2 months. Yeah, there's always a tension between communities that are growing and who they're growing for. And I think that's where you have a lot of policy tools at your disposal, you know, as a city to say, you know, if we're gonna give somebody, you know, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, they have to agree to provide, you know, 15% of the housing units in that development within a certain income threshold. So again, I look to the policy approach as a great complement for what's happening in the private sector.
I think just maybe a suggestion, just kind of weigh the kind of selling to private interests in the space, because like, for instance, the med school, that space is for med students and it's not meant for regular people to go and hang out there. It's a similar thing to like Wichita State. Generally, access is granted by the identification of a student. So as you're building these spaces for private interests, also build spaces where we don't have to spend money to have fun and to exist. So that balance
The
between.
playmaking industry calls that third places, right? So it's your spaces where you can exist without spending money, you can hang out, you can spend time.
Right.
We have some great public assets downtown, Chester Lewis Park, Nasker Park, the whole riverfront. Riverfront has come up so many times in little brainstorming sessions we've had so far of, you know, how do we better engage with our most distinctive asset in the city? You know, not every downtown has a beautiful river running through it, but we kind of turned our back to it architecturally through development patterns through the years. So how do we re-engage with that through our built environment, through our programming? Because that is a space where anybody can be any time of day. You know, it's a truly public space.
New things, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, so, I don't know if you all have any say in this, but I imagine it plays a role in like the vibrancy of downtown. But the nightlife available for not just those who are 21 and older, but I know of a lot of like 17-year-olds, high school students who are truly looking for activities and things to do. And I think you kind of hit on it with Dirk was mentioning, but our company brought a bunch of young professionals to Wichita. I think roughly around 100 folks from all across the country to Wichita. And the number one concern was Wichita's a great city, but when it came time to doing things outside of the conference or the training, there weren't many options. And so I think that points to retention and attraction and different things of that nature. And then to the point about the homelessness issue, right? Like I think it's competing values, right? There is an economic aspect to this that I don't want to disregard. And yet living downtown myself, they are our neighbors, right? And so how do we also help our community understand the dignity in each human being and not just look at the business case or the economic case of I can't run downtown because the psychological safety, right? So like, how are we helping folks unlearn some of those things that we've taught ourselves that data just simply says it's not true, right? Our homeless population are least likely to have violent offenses, right? And so how are we educating folks to embrace our neighbors, all of our neighbors, as a part of that downtown story? And it doesn't mean that we have to be complacent with some of the barriers that come with that, but also like not looking at them as if they're not a part of our community is critical.
Right, and they're my neighbors. You know, I say good morning to, you know, the gentleman who sleeps on a bench outside. building, you know, I think at the crux of everything, you have to remember that, you know, we all have, you know, the same right to be, you know, in downtown Wichita. I think, you know, the activities that people engage in are, you know, that's where you get into some criminality, that does require addressing, but you know, at the crux of everything, we're dealing with people, and people behave in all different kinds of ways. Some are legal, some are not. A lot of communities have done trainings to try to dispel fear of the unknown. You know, in my previous downtown, you know, police officers would come to, police officers would work with social service providers and partner and go to business association meetings and say, here you have concerns about, you know, how to address somebody loitering outside your business, or somebody acting erratically. Here are some tried and true, you know, methods that you can share with your staff, with your customers. I think the hardest thing is visitor relations, because we don't have that opportunity to educate. But there's so many opportunities to educate people who live and work downtown on, you know, if someone's behaving erratically, you know, walk in a different way around them. They're probably operating in their own, you know, psychosis. You don't need to enter that. You know, you can give them space, avoid that. You know, and in the meantime, you know, can we, if that person is frequently, you know, something that you're downtown, can we connect with social services to see if we can so there's a compassionate approach that involves education to dispel that fear. You know, I walk downtown all the time. I have never feared for my safety. I'm also accustomed to navigating urban environments. So I think there's an experience and a threshold and exposure that's important. So, you know, everybody has different comfort levels, but sometimes when you can educate that, like, this person's behavior has nothing to do with you, and you can operate separately from that. It's empowering to say, oh, I know what to do. I'm just gonna walk over here instead and go about my day.
Thank you for that.
Just one last.
Oh, and sorry, I did want to address the entertainment. So, you know, everybody knows with the impact of the pandemic on downtown was pretty devastating for retail. Cities that are smaller in size, like Wichita, really had a little bit more staying power. We didn't see quite the ebb and flow of that. You know, friends in San Francisco are talking about, you know, you hear a lot about the doom loop, and then there's research that dispels the doom loop of the doom loop being, you know, it's empty, so nobody goes there, so then it gets more empty and more crime happens and nobody goes there, and it just seems like it's endless cycle. It's vastly overstated. You know, San Francisco is doing okay, but you know, the fortunate thing in Wichita is that we have some strong small businesses that weathered the storm. We also have opportunity to look at kind of diversifying what we have on the ground floor. It's, you know, with national behavior centering on online retail, we're not, you know, we as a unique downtown environment, we cater to local unique shops, which is our niche in the, you know, in the industry. You know, you're not going to find same places at Bradley Fair that you find in downtown, because downtown has so much local ownership. That's a really special thing. But industry-wide, what we're seeing is, instead of trying to backfill some of these retail spaces with more retail, we're looking at entertainment. You know, so how do you have, you know, an arts, shopping, dining, entertainment district downtown, and do those entertainment uses appeal to activities other than eating and drinking, right? So that's where your, you know, your downtown sports facilities, or your, you know, we have a great arcade in our downtown, you know, leading into some of those entertainment uses that could be catered to a broader population.
Thank you.
Just one last thing, kind of, I guess, a heads up. Poverty is going to keep increasing in the world. So we're in a late stage capitalist society. So whatever your modeling is that you're going to be moving forward with, just have the anticipation and expectation that there are going to be more poor people in the future, and fewer rich people that have more money to spend. So just the modeling, as I was saying, kind of weigh the free spaces, weigh
how to get these people here without the expectation of them spending money they don't have.
Good point, and I think, the market has responded to that in terms of, even with residential development, we're seeing more smaller scale units that tend to be more affordable in the market. There's a scalability for developers there, if I can put 3 studios into the space that a 3-bedroom would have occupied, they're ultimately gonna make more money, but each of those units is more affordable. So you're creating a downtown opportunity.
Are you familiar with tiny homes? I hate to suggest them because they are, but so my brother bought some property in Colorado that is next to an old tent city, essentially, that the city went ahead and just built them a bunch of tiny homes in the same place. That way, the culture of the tent city still there, and there's grief between the residents and then the tent residents, but the box allows them the dignity to disappear. I think that's a big issue with the mental health that we have in our houselessness population, is that they don't get to disappear. There's a difference between inside people and outside people. Inside people get to not exist. They have the right of anonymity in the sense that they don't have to stay in the space. But our houseless population, they don't get that liberty. So maybe venturing into, instead of just kicking out these tent homes, building on public property, a tiny home community to where, again, they get the confines of a space, they get an address, and then they can get, recognition as a homeowner, even though it's like a smaller, like 10 by 10 box with maybe a shitter and a sink. I think the tiny home community thing is a viable strategy to get people started. Now, their tiny homes, only like 3 out of the last 3-4 years have actually transitioned out of those spaces. So it's not like we should imagine it's a jump off place, but it is at least a retainer to give houseless people dignity of space to disappear in. So
There is a tremendous model nationwide. Memphis, in kind of their first street neighborhood in their downtown, has a tiny home community that's incredibly well managed.
Oh, the fence they had on it was top notch. Everything looked great. It had been going for like 3 years, they said. And, they have cameras there. It's highly surveilled. It's not like it's a free space, but again, being able to go inside and scream in your pillow is something that I think they should have the right to do as well. It's just like, we have our mental health days.
It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out within the downtown density that's desired. Doesn't really afford the space for individual tiny homes. There's a tiny home developer in Syracuse, my previous community, that is actually putting tiny home single rooms into former church facilities. So as we look at kind of the assets in our community that are underutilized, a lot of religious property is looking to be reused. And so is that something that could fit into that?
Yeah, thank you.
Seeing nothing further, thank you all so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. We look forward to participating in Project Downtown 2035, so we can plan our vision for the next 10 years.
All right, that wraps up our breakfast. Everyone who's still here. Next month, we will have Lindsay Banaka, Director of Arts and Services, and I'm waiting on a confirmation for our second presenter. That's going to be a great conversation, especially with all the talks that we've been having about public art here recently and what the future of that looks like. So the council did approve the cultural arts plan. Should be talking about that and everything else going on. We did go a little over. I have to get out west for 1 o'clock, but just 2 quick updates. We cut the ribbon on the water treatment plant yesterday. So that is our biggest infrastructure project in our city's history, $500 million. It will be fully operational in April, but it is now certified to work. They're doing all the testing right now. So great day in the city of Wichita, having that infrastructure deal done. And then, of course, next Friday, we'll be breaking ground on the multimodal facility, which will take a little more than a year to get done. So next baseball season, we won't have it, but the season after that in 2026, we will. And I think those are the 2 main things, but we will be back here, same time, same place next month with Lindsay Banaka. That's going to be a great conversation about public art, and I hope to see each of you there.